Go 95.3, I'm Chaz Kanks, and I'm here today with
Myq Kaplan.
And
Megaran.
On this beautiful, wonderful Memorial Day weekend. It is Soundset weekend, more importantly, and on top of that, non-Soundset things going down, hence you guys being here, and stealing the shine, if not totally stealing the show, at least pickpocketing it a little bit. Yeah. So how's the experience been for you guys so far?
Great. Happy to take all of the show. It's mine, and sorry if you missed out on a wonderful hip-hop event because I took it with my comedy doing.
Yeah. It's been great so far. I always love coming to Minneapolis, and you're welcome for the weather. I brought this from Phoenix to take care of you guys out here. I heard it was a little cold, so I wanted to bring some sunshine.
Yeah, we appreciate it because even by Minnesota standards, it's been ridiculously cold. We had our last snowfall, I think, 11 days ago prior to this. Even Wednesday, it was down in the 30s and 40s. So yeah, so you're bringing that sunshine in. So you mentioned it's your third year performing at Annie Minneapolis last night. So how different is it performing for the Annie Minneapolis crowd than because you were also here earlier this month at the Skyway?
Yeah, it's almost night and day playing like a club venue versus a convention show. But this past tour, we tried to make sure all of our shows were all ages. So that actually helped me to get ready for anime cons or comic cons. So you know that you're going to get an all ages crowd. You know there's going to be kids. You can engage them in new ways. And I'm a former school teacher, so I do enjoy when kids are in there getting into it. So I kind of speak the language, so to speak. So yeah, I enjoy it. But yeah, as it goes through the years, this is my third year at Annie Minneapolis, so it gets easier. Playing conventions, I've learned now to take some of those things I learn and do, like the sitting down or the storytelling or the high fives engagement and coming down into the pit. Now I do those at venue shows, and it works out because it's not the norm there. So taking the audience out of their comfort zone has always been kind of my thing. So now they kind of go hand in hand.
And you've also done the shows at gaming conventions and wrestling conventions. Do you find there's certain similarities in how different fandoms react to you bringing hip-hop to them, or do you find that it's largely just them happy to find a hip-hop voice in their particular fandom?
They're very happy to find. A lot of them don't even know that they will enjoy hip hop. A lot of them like, hey, I don't listen to a lot of hip hop, and then they hear me like, oh wow, this is fun. This can speak my language. It can be relevant to my interests. So I think it's awesome to be able to bring hip hop into new spaces. That's really what. It's like the unwritten rule or goal of any entertainer is you want to take it to new places, So I'm really fortunate I get to do that. So from wrestling to anime to comics, all things that I love anyway. But being able to sprinkle a little hip-hop dust on them, I think, is always a fun time.
Nice. And so in terms of projecting things in different places, Myq, you're here in town to record your new album, which is out...
Great. Right now, depending when you're listening to this. If it's far enough in the future, then I hope that what I said is true. Sort of relating to what we were just talking about, there's an animated theme to our being here because my goal for the album that I'm recording, it's an hour of comedy that I've been working on for the past 3 years called All Killing Aside, and I brought it to the Edinburgh Fringe Fest last year and have been working on it in comedy clubs and sort of any kind of venues for the past several years, and it's being recorded audio-wise, but then also my goal for it will be to have it be completely animated, so to have it be an animated hour-long comedy special that isn't just, I love comedy specials, like watching a person on a stage talk, like it is what I do and what I love to see done well, but also I love, every once in a while when I've put out an album, I'll hire somebody to animate a bit, like a 2-minute chunk, a 5-minute chunk, and then you get a visual artist to do their magic to you're make visuals out of your words and add jokes, add things that you can't do in a live show just as a standard human being. But I don't know if you know how cartoons work, but you can draw anything. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. I'm not in charge, but
luck of the draw.
Yeah, Chaz. So that's the goal. Will be to have a fully 1 hour animated result of the recordings that we do here this weekend.
Nice, and that will not be a live animation, though, right? On account of the fact that it puts a strain on the hands.
There are some shows that I've done that are where there are illustrators and animators working in real time. There's it's a show called Picture This, I think, is a live comedy show that I've done in New York and LA, and they do it at festivals where they have people there's a projector and comedians tell jokes and people are drawn real fast. And but yes, this will not be that.
Yeah, good to know. So this is your second album that you've recorded at the Acme, where you are doing it this week. And so Acme, which is a comedy club, historic comedy club, and also you've had previous specials at the Wilbur Theater, was Small, Dork, and Handsome. So what do you find the difference is between performing comedy in a theater space versus in a more, I guess, traditional comedy club space with the Acme?
Sure. I mean, I'm happy to perform anywhere that people, want me to show up to. And then, I mean, they're both wonderful performance spaces, and they both have filled up when I've been there with people who either want to see me or want to see a good comedy show. I think that's a thing that Acme sort of established themselves as doing over the years. So there's probably people coming out to see me this week, some who may not have known who I was, but they just trust that whoever's there this week will be putting on an enjoyable show. But then also, some fans of mine, people who specifically do want to see me. So I feel like performing in a comedy club, you often get you'll get some of those, the more up in the air, who knows, just people out on date night or for a birthday party or whatever it might be. And whereas a theater, usually I think you would expect more people who are there specifically to engage in the advertised event, the specific person. But and then obviously the space, a theater often could be. But I feel like Acme is, for a comedy club, pretty theater-like. There's low ceilings like a comedy club, but it's I feel like to call it a comedy theater wouldn't be, why not? You can call things, what do words mean? Whatever you want. But I'm sincere. I think that maybe one of the main differences in a theater is if there are more people, more space, higher ceilings, sound traveling differently. Sometimes I'll maybe slow down and let the words reach the farther people, let the laughter spread and roll more. Though this hour of comedy, I do talk real fast, and if I didn't, I wouldn't get it in as much time. So while some people are laughing at some things, I might be starting to talk about the other things at the same time. So that's why it is good that we're recording, so that people can slow down, rewind, or listen back multiple times, which is an answer to a question that you didn't ask.
And then remix.
Yes.
But as you mentioned in your show, time moves in absolutely all directions, so they can hear it first, again for the second time, and hear it again for the first time.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
I'm excited. The first album that I recorded here was my second album, and it was just getting to do 4 shows in front of great audiences. Even at the time, I was probably even less. There were fewer people who knew who I was specifically, and so I was just grateful to be able to come to a place with the caliber, the prestige of the venue, and the end. I've finished.
Nice. Yeah, it was awesome. I was there on Thursday, and it was a really good time. Looking forward to hearing, hopefully, some elements of that wind up on the finished product. So, yeah, and speaking of shows I was at Madison Square Garden last April for a performance of yours, Mega Ran, at Ring of Honor's G1 Supercard, which may not have ended in the ideal way that rap shows tend to go. What was the experience of let's say working and then going head to head for the second time with, I guess now we can call him arch nemesis, Bully Ray?
Yeah, arch nemesis is a good term. Being in Madison Square Garden was beyond a dream come true. Never thought me, a humble rapper guy, could ever wind up in a place like that. But the sheer crowd, the noise, the energy was nothing I've ever felt before. So I don't get nervous a whole lot at shows, but I mean, you get that little nervous energy where you got to go to the bathroom right before you go on stage. That's normal. But this was insane, So I'm really thankful for the opportunity, man. I wrote a song. They liked it. They wanted me to come and sing it. And then I was rudely cut off, but that's okay. That's okay. I got to be there.
And Bully Ray got his comeuppance, most importantly. So
Yeah, he did. I wasn't thinking about that at the time. I was like, man, I wanted to be the one to give him that comeuppance. But you know what they say. You got to stick to the script. So I had a good time.
Alleged script, predetermined. One may say.
Alleged script. There wasn't much of a script. I will say that. I got given a mic by Joey Mercury backstage, who said, "Get yourself over, kid." And that was it. That was my command. So went out there, did my thing, and it's unbelievable experience. It's all instinct at that moment. You could script anything, but when there's 20,000 people yelling, anything can happen. Absolutely. So it was just nuts, but it was so fun.
Nice, yeah, and it was so cool to see, especially since we've had Going to the Garden in rotation, and just the whole moment. It was really cool, really great to check that out. Yeah, so I mean, and plus, having a show where you get accosted by a former champion professional wrestler, it's, if not the ideal ending, it's at least it's a new experience.
Hall of Famer. I mean, this is a Hall of Famer who's bullying me, so to speak. So I'm honored to even be mentioned in a program with a guy like that. So it was still a dream, beyond a dream come true for me.
Yeah. So Mike, having dealt with a few hecklers and the occasional show interruption in your time, even with the rapid fire speed of things, has it ever gotten into any sort of physical confrontations on your shows?
Oh, great question. Yes, I've been murdered a few times. That's what I think the end result of most physical confrontations with me would result in. But no, I'd say that I'm one of the ways that I sincerely, at this point, I've been doing comedy 17 years, and I feel one of the questions that people have who don't do comedy frequently, is, how do you deal with hecklers? What happens in those situations? And they are both, I think, fewer and farther between than you might imagine, or there's definitely there's some drunk people at shows, people who might be talking, but not because the classic, the prototypical, you suck, or get off the stage, or I'm gonna come up there, or what did you say? That's much rarer, but even, so if you don't know that, you don't know that. When I started out, I didn't know that, so I was also more fearful, and perhaps that, draws that kind of energy too, so maybe you're likelier to have a problem if you think you might have a problem. You're like, oh no, is it going to be a problem? You already have a problem. But I feel now, the worst thing that could happen is, other than a physical confrontation, so I'm usually not worried about that. And I'll usually, if somebody bigger than me yells something or says something, I will say whatever I can to, try to find out why, connect with them, be what's happening? If I can say something funny to make them not do it again, then I'll endeavor to do that. But really, I want to connect, and if they're ruining the show, then I just want to make sure that everyone knows that they're ruining the show and I'm not, and I'd be happier to keep doing the show. And I've had a guy once, he said a thing and I said a funny thing, and then he was like, well, look at that, you wouldn't have said that funny thing if I hadn't have been here saying what I said. I'm like, but I would have said other funny things that I did already have planned, and now I can't say because I have to go. And so if anyone's to blame, but the only I guess not fear, but I feel the fact that, when you're on stage, you have the microphone, you have the power, you are the authority if there is anyone. But of course, if somebody wanted to, they certainly could come up and, injure me. There's a lot of people, I'm 5'6", and there are a lot of people that are taller and have a longer arm reach and faster legs and more physical training, perhaps in, I'm a pacifist, not only because I have to be, practically speaking, but metaphorically, metaphysically, all the ways. And but so I'll generally try to, if I'm, somebody did say something at the late night show last night, and they were a fan of mine who was excited by a thing that I said a thing about math, and they yelled out oh, the math, they're into math, so they shouted back the thing, and then they were like, sorry, and I was like, please, no more supportive heckling, even if it's going to be followed by apologetic heckling, and I think that if it was somebody that I was actually, unaware of or not, nervous about, if I'm will this person have a problem? Will they want to confront me? I would just say, please don't do that. I'm definitely, hey, I'm in charge unless you actually are, and that's fine too, and we can agree to disagree.
Yeah, well, it's the supportive heckling is, perhaps one of the rare, the more elusive or the exotic types of heckling. So still unwanted. It's like when in a sawtooth grain beetle infestation, but it's at least we know we're on a planet where it exists. But that in mind, though, with and one reason I'm glad we could have like both you guys together concurrently is because with so much of the subject matter, with you in comedy, with you in music, touching so many things, reaching so many people, whether it's on the side, like obviously most recently with math or anime or all the different sort of endeavors. Have you ever found you've made a reference or tapped into something that someone may have mistaken for a reference to something else or misinterpreted, like one of your jokes, maybe one of your lyrics, and it kind of made you look at your own writing in a new way?
Interesting. I mean, I think that I certainly, in the changing landscape of society that is, always underway, but perhaps now even more saliently noteworthy because of how fast technology increases, how many more voices are being amplified, sharing different stories than the ones that we only knew in a limited way growing up, whether, racially, culturally, gender-wise, sexual orientation, all the different marginalized groups that are being heard more now. Like I was definitely raised, a straight white man in just sort of a, middle-class suburban household in New Jersey. My parents were teachers. I was sort of told by my family and society that I could do anything and be anything. And I'm now endeavoring to, I'm like, oh, that's not true. I'm not everything. I'm not all, but that was certainly, even still, like that's just in me. Like my grandmother being like, "You're the best. You're my favorite. You could be president." I'm like, "I'm Jewish. A Jew has never been president." Like every Jew is told to believe that we can, and we do. We're like, we could. We don't want to, or we do, but it doesn't matter. We're doing something else. It's fine. And so like I will look back at my past work and then. I have some albums, from the past 10 years that if I were to record again, I would certainly adjust some of the language, some of the content, some of the things that I'm not necessarily embarrassed by or regret. But let's say if I had jokes about sexual assault, like I don't have direct experience with sexual assault, but I was coming at it from like, well, it's a thing that exists. So why can't I talk about it? And it's not that I can't, but it's that, am I the person that I think ought be saying what do I have to say about it? What do I want to say about it? And should I be, by my own metrics, not by, any censorship or otherwise, and part of that is based on your question. The reason I thought about all this is because part of all this is I have had some friends and fans and other comedians over the year that I've had conversations with who would look back on jokes that I've told or some people find your old albums now and respond to them and they're like, oh, this made me feel this way. Like I loved all of this, but what about this? And so even if my goal was to just tell a joke, to have jokes that represent where I was at the time, what I think is funny, what I think is important, what I think is interesting, those things have shifted so that even if somebody is responding to exactly what I did intend at the time, I might now have a different intent. So I think the answer is no. I can't think of anything like you asked.
Gotcha. But it's good, to have the full perspective on. Especially having the tenured thing and now in this age of internet where everything anyone's ever done is now perpetually always available for the most part.
Oh yeah, you can even attempt to delete it, but that doesn't work. So therefore, there's no point. You gotta just own up to it, and I think part of being an artist is that you get to grow, but you also get to grow on the screen or on the stage and on the mic and on the tape, so people can see your growth in real time. And I remember as a hip hop kid growing up, I used to get a little upset when my favorite artists would kind of grow up, so to speak. It's like, oh, wait, they're not talking about knocking down chairs and causing ruckus anymore. What is this? But now as I'm getting older, I'm like, oh yeah, growth is cool. And you shouldn't have to continually make the same thing over and over again. And you should feel comfortable enough to be able to grow. And I think that's awesome that we can watch our favorite artists' growth in real time.
Yeah, and then to have audiences who can find you during different stages of those growth and connect in different ways, especially with the topics that you guys cover, and with so many different ways people to get in and to make this sort of connection, and being especially the past decade for both of you, whether it was through with the Amazon special and through the Netflix and just everything being everywhere, and and also the appearing on SmackDown and the song in Mighty Number 9, and then the upcoming one that I'm going to edit this part out, but the upcoming one that we'll talk about in a bit. So with all these sort of things and these different sort of ways to catch on, how much have you noticed a particular shift in like having an internet presence in this era for your art and also interacting with fans? Like, let's say between now and 2011.
A shift? I mean, I think the internet is what made my career go, 2011 was the year I quit teaching to do music full time. So, and it was because of my support on the internet. It was because of Reddit, actually. I made a song that popped up on the front page of Reddit, and from there, I just started getting more and more gig offers, and it was literally the internet that created my audience and found my place. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I literally was born on the internet. So and I'm very proud of that, and I think that's so awesome. And I think now more than ever. And it's almost like a pressure. So this is a good question, but because if you feel like you have to maintain that level of connection to the internet. Like if I don't tweet in 24 hours, I think my fans are gonna think I'm dead. So it's like you gotta stay up with that. So that race to constantly come up with new content, funny content, something that's relevant, it can be a bit much. But I think to me, being a guy who was born there, I do feel a bit of an obligation to nurture that audience first. So they may get the funny joke first, or just the news about this thing first before I do it on a stage. So but yeah, I do feel a strong connection to it because of it being where I got my first kind of break, if you could call it that.
Yeah, I started doing comedy in about 2002, and I think I just started having email a few years before that in college, and so it wasn't like the major player that it was at the time. Like there was, I think maybe Dane Cook was sort of rising in popularity, and the story was like, oh, he used MySpace, so everyone should use MySpace to. But obviously, he had also been for years before that building his skills and craft and art as a comedian, and then once that technology became available, he did utilize it in a way that hadn't been done on that scale as yet. And then, but sort of similar things would happen, like when Twitter came about. Like when Twitter first came out, I was like, it seems like it's just like I already had Facebook, and Facebook you can put a status and also tons of other things like pictures that you could write for as long as you want. I'm like, Twitter's just like a limited version, like the tiniest snippet, and I'm like, why should I even have that? And then you just start seeing like some comedians became Twitter famous, like Rob Delaney was one of the first guys I saw who I knew, and I'm like, oh wow, now he has like a burgeoning, blossoming career, TV, writing, performing, comedy, otherwise, like all kinds of things that certainly trace back to social media, but also it's not just like, he's not simply lucky. He was writing jokes early, and so the idea of being an early, I never know if it's an early adopter or early adapter, but you got to be both. You got to adopt if you want, adopt and adapt. And so at a certain point, I was like, I guess I'll go on Twitter and put jokes there, and then people are like, oh, you should put them on Facebook too. And I'm like, well, why don't? It's so weird because it is in one way like all the same. You can put pictures and words and videos on any of the sites, but some people, it's so funny to me that like some kids are like, I'm not going on Facebook, that's for old people, I'm gonna look at the pictures and the words on this over here, and that's fine. And I'm also I'm certainly like I'm not a digital native, like I didn't have the internet growing up, so I'm sure I sound like, and I'm sure certainly if I didn't sound like an old person yet, when I say I sound like an old person, now that's like the most old person thing that I could say, like, and I'm excited to like learn and use the new things, like, but I usually do it a few years after the fact. Like I didn't get a smartphone until maybe like 3 years after it was possible to. And then now whenever I get a new phone, I always get the one that's like 2 years old, but it's new to me. So it's like I keep moving. I'm just like slightly in the past to everyone else, technologically speaking. And same thing with Twitter, with Instagram, with everything. I'm like, well, I get once everybody's doing it, I'm like, I guess I'll do it. But sometimes, what do you got? There's some things that probably like, oh, I'm going to be the first to do this, and then it doesn't happen, it doesn't work. There is some measure of luck to it all, but so regardless, at the bottom line, I'm grateful for anyone who engages with my work and my comedy, my life, in the ways that I would want them to, anywhere. Like, if there are certain people that read what I write on Facebook, wonderful. If you like my jokes on Twitter or my, sincere truths that I post sometime, I'm doing comedy for the most. I mean, there certainly are people who are successful there are people who are only doing comedy on the internet. Like, there are people who are just making videos, who are just writing, who are just, doing live streamed things or podcasts or web series. And for me, I've been a stand-up, live performer sort of first and foremost, and I'm happy to have the possibility to record with technology and then release those things onto all of the streaming and otherwise available options for people to get it, whether it's, Pandora or Sirius Radio or iTunes or Spotify. Like, there's so many things that I'm glad exist, because it's just I feel like that's obviously the difference between when I started out. It was just like, will people look at the physical piece of paper that tell them to go to the All Asia Cafe and see me talk and be sad for a little while? And now, I mean, it seems like it's just it's sort of in some ways a parallel, because in the past it'd be like, oh, are they gonna look at my flyer compared to all these other flyers? And now it's like, oh, you have Facebook, you can like put a Facebook event. Oh, is anybody gonna see my event in the slew of all the rest of, like, everybody? There are, I think, more people. I think I read a study, more people want to be famous now, so there probably are more people like putting out calls for such a thing. More people who are like, come see me, come see this show. Like, it used to be probably I would only try to promote like the biggest shows, and there's lots of people now trying to, and no reason not to, try to promote all the shows. But it does sort of like the rising tide raises all ships, but also like the rising noise levels does obscure a lot of the specific information that some people might want. So I'm grateful for any person that listens to my podcast or buys my albums or streams them or comes to a live show, engages in any way, because there's billions of people, and it does seem like they all have a podcast that they want you to listen to. So thank you, everyone, for even listening to this. Is anyone listening? Thank you.
No, everyone's listening to this. Yes, I just checked. Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, both you guys, for being here. I'm so glad we could make this connection sort of thing happen. Megaran, where can people hear and find everything you're doing?
Oh, first of all, I have a podcast too. Yay. You can find me pretty much anywhere typing in Megaran. So there's Megaran.com. There's Megaran merch for merch. There is Megaran music for music. And at Twitter, Megaran, but it looks like Meg Ryan when you squeeze it close together, but it's not. It's Mega Ran. So yeah, I'm all in all those places.
All right. And Myq?
Same at Megaran.com, and my website is Myq. If you put Myq Kaplan, spelled MYQ, Kaplan, Kaplan, put that into anywhere in the internet, all the social medias, you can get all my albums, my special that's now on Amazon called Small, Dork, and Handsome. My podcast is called Broccoli and Ice Cream, and if you look for me, you'll find me.
Sweet. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cool. Nice.